So apparently there's huge drama over the Game of the Year awards. The CEO of Black Myth developer exposes the award as rigged, and Black Myth developers were crying and upset after Astrobot won. I came here for nothing, the director called out. Asmongold Clips titled this as the biggest scandal in gaming right now. Apparently, the crying is fake. Baldur's Gate 3 is being review bombed by Chinese gamers, and according to Redditors on the subreddit Gaming Circle Jerk, the Black Myth CEO is a loser in more ways than one, and the developers are arrogant. Well, I'm going to play the role of mediator here. To cut to the chase, all of the drama is fake. It's engineered. Even though the video has a clickbait title, the editor for the Asmongold Clips channel is right to say that Twitter has created a fanfiction of the CEO being upset. I would like to add that Reddit and content farming websites are doing the same. Let's start with what happened at the Game Awards. The Game Awards is a Western annual awards ceremony, founded, produced and hosted by a Canadian, held in California, and has an advisory board primarily of Western and Japanese companies. This is not the only awards ceremony. For example, there's the Golden Joystick Awards that doesn't have a physical event, but is hosted on Games Radar, and anybody can vote for the games. There, Black Myth Wukong won Ultimate Game of the Year. The Game Awards works differently in that winners for each category are decided 90% by a voting jury of media and influencer outlets, and 10% by player vote. Being a Western award ceremony, it shouldn't be surprising that 35 out of the more than 100 of the voting jury is from the US and UK. There is a Player's Voice category, which Black Myth Wukong won, but that doesn't seem to be a physical trophy to receive. Out of these many categories, Black Myth Wukong won Best Action Game. Black Myth also did get nominations for Overall Game of the Year, but Astrobot won it in the end. At least from the online footage, it doesn't seem like Black Myth developers were very upset. The source for that information came from Alanah Pearce, who looked like she started reading an article after being informed in Twitch chat that Baldur's Gate 3 is being review bones.
Chinese players are review bombing Baldur's Gate 3 because Sven presented it Game of the Year to not Wukong. Holy shit.
This is where she chimed in by saying,
I was with the Sony publishing team. Behind me was Joseph Faris. Just behind him was Sam Lake, both of whom I know and am very fond of. They're both really great dudes. But I could see all of the nominees and awards winners, and the Black Myth Wukong team, I don't know which person on the team, was crying when Astrobot got Game of the Year. Because you could see him just looking down the line, which is the first time I've ever seen anything like that, because generally everyone is like, Game Awards doesn't matter that much. But yeah, the Wukong team were crying when they did not win, which was definitely unusual. Clearly meant a lot to them. They did an amazing thing.
When asked if it was celebratory, she clarified that it wasn't.
Did it look like celebratory crying? No. They were upset. Definitely upset.
The former editor-in-chief of IGN China says she likely mistook someone else. Now, I have no idea why she said what she said, but at least from watching about 15 minutes of her stream, I don't think she had an agenda. Because here's what she said later in the video.
Korea and China are very interested in breaking into the West like Japan has, and are not having the same funding problems and are not having the same publishing fears. So we may see a huge boom of new creative games from China and Korea, which previously were largely mobile game markets or even outsourcing markets. And the outsourcing teams have a ton of experience. Like, when they say Naughty Dog was made in North America, that's sort of, The Last of Us, that's sort of a lie, in that like the core employed by Naughty Dog team is in North America, but they outsource tons of their stuff. Most studios do. It's really common in AAA. Like, you outsource any array of things to extremely experienced teams overseas, and a lot of those teams are in China, who now have a ton of experience working on AAA games, and they could start making their own. So while the state of the Western games industry is not in a great spot, and I think we probably have another couple of years before the effects of COVID wear off on the games industry, I would expect to see potentially an exciting boom from Korea and China. And that could be cool. We could see very different things, so.
Well, that doesn't sound like she's against Chinese developers. She was only prompted to talk about it because someone pointed out a review bomb. which I can only assume is information that comes from either the gamer or Game Rant. The article seems to be one of those articles written by AI or underpaid writers, taking popular social media posts to make an article out of. In this case, Reddit. Even so, the articles did provide context that it's only 539 negative reviews. Keep in mind that for a game like Baldur's Gate, that's basically nothing. These negative reviews are upset about some comments made by the CEO of the developer for Baldur's Gate 3. The potential reason was that there were dodgy Chinese translations of the speech made. I think this is likely to be some kind of automated machine translation. In the actual speech, Swen is happy that games are being made by passionate developers who are creating games without exploiting gamers or workers for profit, and aren't doing so out of some political agenda. He is also happy that gamers recognize this because these developers know that profits will follow.
So it turns out that not only will I be the one who will know as first which game wins tonight, but I actually also know which game is going to win next year, the year after, and the year after. Now, how do I know this? Well, an oracle told me. She said, change is coming. The oracle told me that the game of the year 2025 was going to be made by a studio who found the formula to make it up here on stage. It's stupidly simple, but somehow it keeps on getting lost. The people in charge forbade them from cramming the game with anything whose only purpose was to increase revenue and didn't serve the game design. They didn't treat their developers like numbers on a spreadsheet. They didn't treat their players as users to exploit. And they didn't make decisions they knew were short-sighted in function of a bonus or politics. They knew that if you put the game and the team first, the revenue will follow. But above all, they cared about their game because they loved games. It's really that simple, said the oracle.
So it's true that some Chinese gamers somehow took machine translation as accurate and left negative reviews. But it's also true that there is a spike in positive reviews, which I assume is also by Chinese gamers who did this to counteract the new negative reviews. So now let's go to the I came here for nothing and exposing the Game Awards as rigged part. There are multiple articles written about this as usual, but for example, this Polygon article has the title saying the producer is pissed and a subheading emphasizing his arrogance. This Eurogamer article makes him more sarcastic and then sarcastically points out that the game still had 2 awards. Eurogamer noted the source as Weibo and is using a translation on Reddit, though they did not point out the translation is a ChatGPT translation. Polygon's article also used machine translation, cross-referencing from ChatGPT and Google Translate. I find Polygon's article to be particularly interesting because it is clearly trying to frame some kind of narrative. Writing out your thoughts is a normal thing to do, but the writer frames this as the CEO not being able to shut up as if people have never written blogs before. Astrobot didn't win Game of the Year, no. Black Myth Wukong was defeated. It couldn't be that I came here all the way for nothing was a joke. No. He was craving and expecting it. I mean, there has to be some kind of irony that the writer for Polygon is willing to admit that something may have been lost in translation, and that the translations were done by machines, but yet refuse to adjust their tone in the article or fact-check the culture of sexism. Now, I didn't want to do this, but I suppose we need to translate the full blog now. But know that it will not be accurate. Even as a bilingual, there can be references that go over my head simply because I am not a Chinese national or have the same language proficiency. If it's too long, just know this. The blog was never written for people who need to use machine translations. I would say the blog is self-reflecting, a bit disappointed, and humorous through self-mockery. He's certainly not looking for a fight. The main message is basically to continue to be down to earth while striving for a better future. His starting sentence says that a day has passed since TGA, so he wants to say some heartfelt words that may be useful to some friends. Note, this means that these words are meant for colleagues in the industry who can read Chinese. Point 1. The award ceremony coincided with the release of a rather big update. For me personally, this project, which took 7 years, has concluded another chapter. The 4 nominations for Black Myth Wukong, Best Action Game, Best Art Direction, Best Game Direction and Game of the Year are a first for China. In the end, we took Best Action Game and Player's Voice. Reading players' voice especially is pleasing and relieving. But I have to admit that there's some disappointment, some regret, and mostly a sense of casting away illusions. So, this castaway illusions phrase comes from Mao Zedong's castaway illusions prepare for struggle, though I don't think it was meant to be political. It's more of a we should continue to be resilient and struggle. Once again, emphasized because the original phrase was often mistranslated to have militaristic tones, this is likely not political. The games nominated this year are all exceptional, but I really didn't understand what the criteria for Game of the Year were this time. I came here for nothing. Emphasize here on the I really didn't understand the criteria part, meaning he probably wants to understand what makes certain games objectively better. From yesterday until now, I had seen lots of players in their discussions expressing strong dissatisfactions, unwillingness, and unhappiness. Most of it using humorous and thorough deconstruction, which is hilarious. I completely understand this discontent and share this unhappiness because I know that behind these emotions are not pain or malice but pride and confidence. It would be normal to feel upset when you're so confident and yet unable to gain recognition. But actually, 6 dots to emphasize he is somewhat joking. I'm even more confident than you are. Refer to my first answer on Zhihu. I wrote the speech for the Game of the Year award stage 2 years ago and I didn't get to use it. Triple beta crying emoji, again emphasizing that he is somewhat joking. During the development of this game, many colleagues were less optimistic than I was. Maybe they played too many interim versions and so felt the game had too many flaws, and doubted it could launch on time. One of my main roles at the company was to constantly reassure them that we had done a great job. The product is constantly improving. That's right, you can't only be confident after you win. That's not confidence. That's just reiterating the results. We lost today and might lose again tomorrow, but so what? There are too many complex factors influencing outcomes. Results are inherently uncertain. The only thing we can be certain of is what we choose to do specific things, to do difficult things, and to do things that we believe in. When doing so, we should of course be confident. Point 3. Some people say that for a team with no experience in single-player games, making their first single-player game and achieving such a result is such a rare occurrence of low probability that it's unlikely to be replicated in the future. I would say this is not by chance. It's the inevitable result of Chinese culture, Chinese talent, China's business environment, and China's game industry colliding with global players. If we hadn't seen this inevitability early on, we wouldn't have been so determined to make this choice. It wasn't a gamble. It was seizing opportunities and taking action. Game Science is fortunate to participate in and witness the beginning of this momentous opportunity. I believe there will be more peers who will bring even better, even more interesting and more confident Chinese stories to the world in the future. Point 4. There's a well-known saying from Journey to the West that many don't realize originates from the book. So I'm going to put a more literal translation first so the explanation later makes sense. In the world, there is no difficult thing. There is only the fear of determined people. So a translation would be, there is nothing too difficult for people who set their minds to it. Basically the Chinese version of if there's a will, there's a way. Continuing with the post. From my understanding, this doesn't mean that any difficulty can be conquered as long as you're willing to try. Instead, it means that if you approach difficulties with the attitude of rising to the challenge, then difficulties and failures become less intimidating. They won't easily defeat you. Leading a life that calmly deals with and navigates unavoidable difficulties also feels more grounded. It's fun because it's hard. Point 5. Why are we called game science? It is when we decide to use mathematics, physics, and such foundational sciences and engineering derived from them to analyze and solve problems. When we do so without using mysticism or sensationalism, that we can then truly look at this complex world with level-headedness. That's how we can perceive and understand where exactly those rivals far ahead of us excel. If someone doesn't present specific problems, doesn't present evidence or logic, and yet claims that something is too challenging or too deep, maybe you should test their knowledge of differentials. Science isn't the truth. It's an attitude that seeks the truth from fact. So this is another reference to an idiom popular with Chinese politicians. The phrase means that we should test theory against reality rather than adhere dogmatically to theory. And about that point about differentials, I have no idea. Point 6. In truth, being able to make and play games already makes us a very lucky group. In this world, many people don't even have the opportunity to play so-called AAA games. There are many who haven't used consoles or computers. There are many who feel lost, in pain, or even in despair of their situation. Many endure suffering and injustice. I think, precisely because of this, we should strive to create even better games. Create something that lets even more people experience truth, goodness, and beauty. I've always believed the greatest value of good games is making the distribution of happiness in this world more equitable. The road ahead is still long, the winds are wicked, and the Yao King is still arrogant. But we are constantly getting stronger. So drama mamas will claim this to mean that their rivals are demons to be slain. But in Journey to the West, the variations of Yao, Guai, Jing, and all those are allegories for a person's inner demons. So in context, this just means to stay strong emotionally and persevere. Point 7. Finally, I hope the story of Black Myth can give some courage to those who are still lost and offer a glimmer of light to those wandering in the dark, so they can move forward with a calm heart. I hope everyone continues to carry confidence and ambition, remain brave, honest and kind, earnestly work on every small specific task, and calmly accept uncertain results, continuing on the journey of obtaining scriptures until the very end of life. As Hemingway said, the world is a fine place and worth fighting for. And that's the end of the post. Well, do you still think the director is pissed? I don't think I captured the humor, but I think I can understand the self-reflection and disappointment. Unless I have been using emojis wrong and I'm only supposed to use them and my real-life expressions are exactly that way, the CEO doesn't seem like he cried. But from his reflections, he did observe players in online discussions being disappointed. He didn't expose anything. I came here for nothing was simply a joke that emphasized that he couldn't understand what specifically made their game inferior. In context, point 5 is telling us that they want to analyze what makes games good while also saying their rivals are far ahead of them. The devs weren't arrogant, and the CEO didn't crave the reward. If anything, it seems like the CEO had to make up for his team's lack of confidence. Writing the award speech 2 years ago is a joke to tell fans and his team that he is the one who is the most disappointed. But suppose that this is true and he really did write one. I would like to ask, what is wrong with that? Have you ever really tried to do or achieve anything? Because if you did, I think it is really easy to emphasize with his confidence. So what happened here? I read the post from the Game Science CEO. I watched the stream recording from Alanah Pearce. There doesn't seem to be any drama here. Baldur's Gate CEO made a positive comment about the game industry. No drama here. Machine translation was used. No drama here. Some Chinese took a small part of the machine translation out of context. Now suddenly there's drama, and then articles come out. Now that's drama, and then there are more internet comments blowing up the drama. Black Myth CEO made an encouraging blog post for Chinese gamers and developers. No drama here. Machine translation was used. No drama here. Some Westerners took a small part of the machine translation out of context. Now suddenly there's drama, and then articles come out. Now that's drama, and then there are more internet comments blowing up the drama. Some person on the internet reads an article. No drama here. Shares that to a streamer they are watching. Suddenly there's a little bit of drama. The streamer reads it, goes, oh my god, didn't understand the full context. Now there's more drama. Shares a false impression, more drama. And it could have stopped here. It could be a simple mistake, but People just had to write articles. Now that's drama. And then there are more internet comments blowing up the drama. Do you see what's happening here? I mean, let's look at some threads on Reddit. Here's one that used the machine translation for the Game Science CEO's blog post. While the translation is not perfect, I think there's still a lot of context the translation preserved. Point 2 has the sentence, "Many of my colleagues weren't as optimistic as I was." Point 5 also has the sentence, "It let us truly understand what makes those who are far ahead of us so exceptional." Reading the thing in full, even without a perfect translation, should be obvious that this is just a standard encouragement post. Yet, when scrolling to the comments, what did Redditors focus on? Oh, he made the acceptance speech 2 years ago? What arrogance. Damn, now I'm kinda glad this game lost, LMAO. Or even one that accuses the text of having subtle undertones to say that the poll is rigged and is a deliberate plan to undermine the Chinese gaming industry. Or look at this thread which pointed out the spike in negative reviews for Baldur's Gate. It wasn't supposed to be news. 500 negative comments is basically nothing for a product as popular as Baldur's Gate 3. But the OP chose to filter by negative comments to only look at that. And despite that, it's still 15,000 upvotes. At least people in this thread seems to realize that it's only a minority of Chinese trolls. But my question is, even so, why encourage threads like this? I am assuming that these commenters aren't bots. But why do you spend so much effort to fan the flames? As much as we can blame content farming websites like Eurogamer and Dexerto, why do you keep reading them, sharing them, and upvoting them? Why do you always assume the worst of people and push narratives like that by commenting on them? Why must it be that Asmongold destroys Alanah Pearce? That it is the biggest scandal? People made it newsworthy. Content farming sites are part of the problem, but they cannot operate on content that people do not click, read, upvote, or share. They cannot operate without writers and editors who choose words to put in the thumbnails and articles they publish. I mean, just take a look at my channel. When I spend weeks researching the non-pop history version of the history of Alfredo, I get 290 views. Researching on the relationship of Cerberus and Honeycakes is 1,500. But when I complain about Mr. Beast, I get 92,000. When I complain about Genshin Impact, 55,000. Was I drama farming? Sure. But if my food history videos had the views I thought they deserved, I would have never got to even touch these dramas. Additionally, I think I was justified in doing so. I think the culture exemplified and encouraged by Mr. Beast is harmful. That's why I made 2 videos on it. I think gacha monetization is predatory and shouldn't be industry practice. I think I was right in dramatizing these topics. But what about some message mistranslated, taken out of context and shared by people who didn't understand the language, didn't understand the culture, didn't read the message, didn't read the article, didn't even play the goddamn game? Nowadays, people are incentivized to put out their opinions no matter how misinformed they are, simply because there is money to be made or something seedy like karma. It is radicalizing people into believing that there is some kind of culture war even when there isn't. We've managed to turn boring, encouraging messages into hate simply because there are a few more bucks to be made from drama and the machine tells you that this makes the number go up. Is this what gaming is about now? The number 9 rule on r/gaming is no bigotry, incivility, and toxicity. Is this not all 3 of those? I'm sure something similar happens on the Chinese side of the internet. People can be quite similar sometimes. But I guess, drama aside, is Black Myth Wukong deserving of Game of the Year? My opinion is that given the challenges of unfamiliar Chinese culture and repeated demonization of China by the Western media, it is difficult. For one, the Game Awards is a Western awards ceremony. While there are Japanese companies and Japan is an Asian country, Japan is also a United States ally and generally westernized. The winners from 2014 to 2024, with the exception of Sekiro, take place in Western settings. And among Asian cultures, samurais and shinobis are probably one of the most beloved and understood by Westerners. So the thing is, for Easterners, when eating your local food, do you consult the Michelin Awards or your local guides? It's the same thing here. These awards are created by Westerners who have limited understanding of Eastern culture. Michelin Awards can be fantastic guides for tourists who have similar tastes as the guide makers, but that is certainly not for locals who are already used to their own cuisine. Point 2. Playing the game in Chinese and English are two very different experiences. Someone without any knowledge of Chinese culture playing Black Myth Wukong in English will probably think it is fine, but as a bilingual Han ethnic, the English localization experience is bad. Imagine visiting Japan, but the only places you visit are McDonald's. And for some reason, the Japanese workers there speak English with American and British accents. That's how bad I think it is. As soon as I heard the English voice for Shen, I shut down the game. Stay back! But to be fair, the English localization isn't terrible per se. It's just that the amount of culture and context are just impossible to translate properly without adding a footnote on top of every conversation. Like, I've said I wanted to release Black Myth lore and GOTY videos, but it's almost 4 months and I've only properly released half an episode. It's so hard to translate and explain that you cannot expect localization to immediately do a good job. Black Myth Wukong is getting nominations for Best Art Direction despite the above. Number 3. Black Myth Wukong winning Best Action is stupid. If we remove the cultural components, the game is probably 8.10 at best. I don't think it is a hot take. Even creators on Bilibili have noted how clunky the game feels compared to other action games. Point 4. Chinese games going into global markets only just started. It's perfectly normal for Westerners to be unfamiliar with Chinese culture. This would have been very different had the Chinese gaming industry not been restricted so much by the Chinese government. So, for example, consoles were banned from the year 2000 to 2015. Ironically, the regulations led to the rise of free games with microtransactions, which ultimately led to League of Legends and Genshin Impact being the face of the Chinese gaming industry on the global stage before Black Myth Wukong. Of course, government regulations may reverse this again. But so you say, only people's choice matters. Well, I have to ask, how many games have you played this year? Did you play all of them? I'm also not happy that content farms like Eurogamer or non-gaming related websites like Rolling Stone are part of the jury. It is ridiculous that the jury has profit incentives from making false claims and dramatizing an event that is about the celebration of games. But People's Choice also gave us Genshin Impact, Wuthering Waves and Zenless Zero Zen in the top spots. 3 gacha games with predatory monetization where players are incentivized to spam votes for more gacha pools. Will you be happy if they win? And since I guess I am people, what about me? This year I played Nier Automata, not a 2024 title, Wuthering Waves, uninstalled and not going to vote gacha, Star Rail, not going to vote gacha, Silent Hill 2 Remake, well I guess technically I didn't play it, only watch people do so. So my only 2 choices left are Grand Blue Fantasy Relink and Black Myth Wukong. Is it really fair that I vote without having played other games? No. If my objective really is to find out what the best game of the year is, I would ask people who played a lot more games what their game of the year is. Actual reviewers who played a lot more games than me. But I can say this. I think Black Myth Wukong is the game of the year for non-gamers familiar with GOTY. When Elden Ring came out, I could recognize it was a great game, but I got motion sickness playing it. Baldur's Gate 3 is another great game, but I didn't bother finding time for it. Black Myth was different in that it made me try to remember and subsequently read the 1592 novel. Even if I get motion sickness, I'm probably going to play it anyway. There was something more to it than just being a game. And that connection is something that only a Chinese can fully understand and feel. And I'm not even from China. What I feel is only a portion of what they feel. How can people living in the West who only read inaccurate translations, who haven't lived and breathed Chinese architecture, and who don't see how intertwined Chinese stories are with real-life culture understand it? Maybe I'm the only crazy one, but I want to believe that less drama is the way to go. I have the first part of the history of Journey to the West on my channel, and I'm currently working on the second part. I hope, at the very least, it can help you understand why Journey to the West isn't just some story or mythology.